All righty. Well, we're here for another week of No One Asked Us, yet here we are talking. And this week, we're extremely excited to have the great Suha Zehl with us. And as always, we're going to get it started off right out of the gate. If you are watching us live, please drop in the chat. Let us know who's out there. But first and foremost, as always, and by always I mean 2 weeks in a row, we have the bio of Suha brought to you by ChatGPT. Now, remember, we feed in two websites for each guest, and then we just see what GPT-03 comes back with. So for today,
I'm scared.
please may Suha, aka Savvy Suha Zehl, where fintech brilliance high fives, stand-up comedy, caffeine, and scuba tanks. Job titles collected like Pokemon: former chief innovation officer, former chief information officer, certified mortgage banker, aka mortgage badass, and now queen of Z Technology Solutions. Industry awards include Tech Trendsetter, Women of Influence, and most likely to automate your to-do list before you finish this sentence. Signature move, turning mind-numbing mortgage data into actionable insights faster than you can say TRID, all while live tweeting, mentoring rising stars, and reminding us that Excel is not a database. Fun facts: scuba diver, globetrotter, and inventor of the fear advantage, which sounds terrifying until you realize it's just her way of helping leaders find their purpose without spilling coffee on the server rack. In short, if Tony Stark and Marie Kondo had a fintech baby who loves spreadsheets and snorkels, you'd get Savvy Suha. So buckle up, your tech stack and your funny bone are about to get upgraded. All right, there we go. What do you think,
Oh
Suha?
my
How did it do?
God. I'm like, are they talking about me? Who are they talking? I want to look behind me and see who the heck are they talking about here?
Pretty solid.
All right, Suha, thanks so much again for being on. We really appreciate it. Start off the exact same place we started off with last week is how did you get into the mortgage industry? Because we know every little girl says, when I grow up, I want to be a CIO in the mortgage business.
No one ever said. I actually stumbled, like so many of us, into this wonderful, wonderful industry back in 2002. I had been living overseas in Abu Dhabi for a while. And if you guys remember, 2001, a major event occurred, 9/11, and I decided it was time to come home. And at the time, I was working for a higher education institution. I was their director of institutional research, doing data analytics, reporting, that kind of thing. And when I got back, I couldn't find a job. Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would hire me. Having been in Abu Dhabi with a name like Suha, it was just like, X,
In
no.
2001.
In 2002, when I got back. That's okay. So I actually was like, this girl's got to eat and pay rent. So I joined Ronstadt, which was a placement agency. My third assignment was at a startup mortgage industry. I walked in and I was doing data entry because that's the only thing I could get at the time. And 4 or 5 years later, I became their CIO.
There you go.
So data entry to CIO in like 5 years.
That works out. That's awesome. I love it. So let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about Z Technology Solutions and sort of, what kind of problems you're solving and what you all do at Z Technology.
Sure. So I hate the word boutique because that really means you're small, and I'm a solopreneur. So I'm very boutique. But we basically help, in the mortgage industry, community banks, credit unions, IMBs, mostly focusing on the smaller lenders in the tech space, whether it's tech modernization, data and AI strategy, business analytics, project management, strategic planning, kind of like wrapping my arms around the technology side of all of that space and helping them make sure that they are solving the right problem. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I do.
All right, there we go. Perfect.
Is that the Marie Kondo part? Did y'all know who Marie Kondo was? Or am I the only one who had to Google that really quick?
I
knew
didn't
about
know who
her.
Marie Kondo was. No.
Is she the organizational
Yeah.
person?
That one.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. I thought it.
She's very boutique, by the way.
There you go. Boutique. And you got to put it in quotes, by the way. If you don't put it in quotes, it doesn't work.
My
Okay.
4-year-old daughter is doing quotes at me now. She just says normal things and she goes like this, and I'm like, "You're getting it. Like you're working on it."
Just a reminder for anybody watching: if you have any questions for Suha that you want us to ask throughout this, drop them in the chat, and if we can get to them, we will. What's the dumbest piece of tech advice you've ever gotten?
Well, one, you mentioned it. Excel is a database, which it's not. But I would say, and I think I mentioned this during last week with Brian, when I was first starting out and open source was becoming big, everybody's like, oh no, stay away from open source. You got to go with the providers. You got to be able to, make sure that it's protected and that you have your IP in place and all of that. And that's all BS, honestly. Open source is wonderful. You can get great things. You can collaborate. You can customize. You can do so much with open source. So I would say this was probably back in 2008, 2009. That's when I got that advice, because we were looking at implementing certain things at the company I was working at, and that I would say that's probably the most ridiculous advice I got.
Yeah, that was funny, Andrew. I don't know how long you've been on the vendor side. I don't know if these are still on the questions as much, but it used to be a major point in vendor management was, do you use any open source? And like, tell us everything.
Yeah.
It was basically a big red flag.
Yeah.
But kudos to you for implementing in 2009.
Well, I mean, I would actually say back in 2008, 2009, the company I was working for, we probably were one of the first, and it's a very small niche lender that looked at the customer experience and how you map up a customer journey way back at that point, and how you integrate your POS with your LOS and making sure that you're breaking down the silos. And I can talk your ears off on this topic.
Let's go.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, I have a question around that, but we can get to it later, I'm sure. Andrew,
no, let's go, PK. Jump
go
in.
for it, PK. Jump in.
Okay, so one thing I see all the time is the confusion with lenders on like what their system of record is. Or sometimes they have no system of record or a CRM. Sometimes it's the LOS. Sometimes it's a CRM. Sometimes it's an Excel spreadsheet. How do you think about it? And like, what's your advice to a lender that maybe doesn't have a system of record, and maybe they're just like copying information from PDFs and Excel spreadsheets into Encompass or whatever LOS they're using? Like, what's kind of like the advice to them, or how do you approach that problem in your own consulting firm?
So for me, the system of record is the system that closes the loan as a lender. That's where you created your closing documents. That's where the note was generated. That's your system of record. That happens to be your LOS. So in my point of view, and there are some that disagree with me, for me, a CRM and a POS, these are sales tools. They're lead gen and sales. Your LOS is where you do all of your back end work, and then you hand off to servicing. And so your system of record as a lender is the system that closes the loan, where you generated that note. That would be your LOS.
Okay, so I don't know, maybe if this is the pushback that you might get on that, but wouldn't you say if the CRM might be the beginning of like the customer journey experience, or so why would you not see it as that versus like the LOS? Maybe there's a reason, I don't know. So
your CRM is actually, your systems are integrated, and your CRM is way upstream at the beginning of the process. But that's not where, I mean, as a lender, as somebody who is basically backing the loan that you're giving your customer, that note is generated from your LOS. That is where your record is. when you go, if you had to go to court and you had to prepare and produce your note that says, hey, I'm actually the lender, I'm on the first lien, your CRM doesn't have that information. You can get it because you have a bidirectional integration, but your LOS is where that record occurred, where that event
Got it.
occurred.
Okay.
Again, that's my opinion. There's some who don't believe like I do, and there's some who do.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Go for
I was
it.
going to say, when the lawyers show up, what system do you go to?
The LOS.
No one goes to their CRM when the lawyers show up.
Again, you got to understand how the funnel is working, and that CRM is way up at the top of the funnel. It's as you go down, where you close, that's your LOS, and then you do your handoff to servicing.
Yeah, I think the important nuance of what you just said there is the bidirectional the data flow. I think sometimes I don't see that, so then it's like, okay, which one is it? Is it that one or is it this one?
Yeah.
So
I think the system of record to your top sales guy is the CRM in their eyes. It's making sure that you connect that CRM's important data to that LOS, because that big sales guy wants that did it close or not in the CRM.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for them, that's where their leads are. That's where their leads are. That's what they work in. Whether it's, I mean, and actually for this LOs, it's more than the CRM. It's kind of like the CRM/POS, because where they take the application is in the POS, not the CRM. The SRM is to manage their leads and nurture and do all of that activity. The POS is where they take their application, whether they're doing a pre-approval or whatever, and then they hand over to the back end to operations when it goes into the LOS.
Makes sense. Great answer.
So let's pivot into
that's a solid answer.
That's good. I agree with you. So we'll pivot into my favorite topic, which is AI. So where I'd like to start off there is what is, and let's stick to the mortgage arena for right now, is what you're seeing as the best use of AI. And I want to focus more on like IMBs, right? Like we know what Rocket and UWM are doing, and
I see there's a big divide there, because you've got the Rockets and the UWMs who have 400 technology groups and hundreds of billions of dollars to actually put into it. And then you've got the smaller ones who don't have that. They may have, if they're lucky, 5 people in the technology team with a really good CIO, CTO. They're really struggling with their infrastructure, with security, with data, all of that, and trying to maintain and implement new things. And so my focus is on that group, because the Rockets and the UWMs, they've got it covered. They can talk circles around me.
Well, they also hire Google and OpenAI. Like
exactly. Exactly.
When you're Hallmark Mortgage, you're not going to be able to do that.
So, to answer your question, I think for IMBs, for smaller lenders who are looking to dip their toe into AI, because a lot of them have not really. And there's a huge, you and I have had this conversation, huge distinction between automation and actual artificial intelligence. Yes. And there's a huge divide between the two. And a lot of vendors know, I'm not trying to pinpoint at anybody, but a lot of vendors say,
they
say, oh, we've got AI, and it's really not AI. It's just rules, if then else's, and that
using
kind of
APIs.
Using APIs, and they call it, AI. It's not automation. Let's call it automation. Let's call it what it is. If you're starting to think about true AI for the small lenders, I think one of the biggest, lowest hanging fruit is obviously income calculation, underwriting. You can do a lot with that. There's a lot of the lead generation space and how you nurture the leads at the beginning that can, actually, so let me start back. Let's go to the top of the tunnel and work down. I think there's a lot of stuff that you could do at the lead gen space. There's a lot of stuff that you could do at the pre-approval space with AI, because again, remember, AI is learning. You're providing it with the data, as long as your data is good, because we all know garbage in, garbage out. So if your data is good, you're going to be able to put in a solid AI that transforms your pre-approval process. As I go down the process, in the back end, I think underwriting is a great place where AI can be introduced. Post-closing, when you're doing your QC, your audits, your, that part of it before you actually sell, whether it's to the agencies or to whoever, there's a huge opportunity there at post-closing. And obviously, as you go into servicing, there's a lot of opportunity in loss mit, in default analysis. Backtrack a little bit to capital markets and secondary. There's a huge opportunity with pricing, with best execution, that you can leverage AI, be able to provide the right product. And again, this layers across the entire funnel. So as you're moving down, your AI is actually providing more and more intel as you go down the line. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit at each step of the process. Each lender is different. And so part of the conversations that I have with them is, what is your pain point? What is the problem you're trying to solve? Some people, it may be the pricing issue. For some, it may be, the handoff at QC and before they sell to the investors. It just depends on who the lender is, but there's opportunity at every step of the way. Did I answer it right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Is there, not to call out people, but do you have like a favorite product that that's out there on the market right now that's like an easy entry point, right? Like I feel like your entry, like sort of you said, I don't think your entry into AI as an IMB should be underwriting.
No,
right?
I mean, and obviously, one of the things that you want to be careful of is anything customer facing. AI is still in its infancy. As much as it has progressed since 2022, when ChatGPT came out, it's still in its infancy. You don't want to put anything customer facing that's going to create a customer service issue at this
a regulatory issue potentially.
Exactly, and a regulatory issue at this stage. So where you put and what you plug in is really, that's going to be part of that conversation that you have with the client, with the customer, with the lender, is what is the pain point? I think QC and fraud is a huge low-hanging fruit that they can start with right now, because that protects the company, that's mitigating risk, and that's giving them a lift that they don't currently have.
Now, what would be, so let's go back to the data point, right? Which is, and I think this is important, especially for any, again, IMBs that are watching this, or folks from IMBs rather, is how do you approach the recommendation for IMBs in terms of ensuring that their data is in the right place to be able to begin to do AI, right? Like we have actually turned away people who've approached us because we're like, and we're much nicer when we say it, but it's basically like, your data's
get your data right and then come back to us.
Like fix your data, because you're right, we can't do anything with bad data.
And that's really is the starting point for the conversation. I think I've said it when I was with Delilah, if you guys know the Taco Tuesdays. We talked about that. And if you think about a building, when you're constructing a high rise, you have to build a foundation that's going to be able to withstand the weight of the high rise that you're putting up. It's the same thing with AI. AI is that high rise, and you need to have the right foundation. And that right foundation is your data, because AI learns from the data that you put in. So that's why I said garbage in, garbage out. So part of the conversation with the clients is taking that step back and saying, okay, listen, we got to get your data to be right. We got to break down the silos, because AI is not going to be able to manage 17,000 different databases and 17,000 different integrations. I mean, of course it can, but you know what I'm trying to say. So you got to get your data to be more seamless and more integrated, more of a platform, more of a true foundation that you can then build on. Obviously, a lot of lenders get scared when you say that, because they think, oh, that's like a 2-3 year project to get my data right. But that's where you get into use cases. That's when you start to say, well, let's narrow down on the use case that you're looking for, and let's start working on that piece of the data so that we can do the proof of concept, show you that it can be done, and then turn around and say, okay, now that we've proven this, let's look at the bigger picture and see what we need to do. Because if you dive head in to try to fix everything at once, you're going to be stuck, and it's 3 years later and AI has gone bye-bye and you're still where you were.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
So
would you agree?
I'll go for it. You got it.
I was going to say, would you agree that one of the things I found is so much is like, data cleanup is giving AI too much data that's not necessary to what you're trying to accomplish, right? So you're like, hey, I'm going to give it all this, and it's like, hey, we just need contact numbers and some contact info. We're going to do use case number 1, and I've noticed if you kind of go give it all these things, and it starts, I'm going to help you with this. You're like, hold on, stop it, come right over here. Yeah.
It's not hallucination, but it's like a focus. It's like
Yeah.
like a squirrel thing. Then it becomes like a squirrel because it's like going, I can help with this, and I
Yeah.
can help with that. You're right. You've got to be focused, and you've got to use the use cases. You've got to define what your use cases are, because that will really allow you to focus on what you're trying to develop at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was gonna say slightly philosophical answer, but look inward before you look externally for vendors. Like, kind of figure out what is it actually you want, and then the use cases, and then you can go outside and like you actually know what you're looking for versus like expecting the vendors to figure that out for you.
And you know who your best use case scenarios are? It's your frontline people who are doing the work day in, day out, and they know what's not working. They know that this is repetitive. They know that this can be done better. Talk to these people. The leaders are great. They can have great conversations and sit down and have the coffee, but it's really the person sitting in front of the computer that's doing the work that can tell you a lot more than the leader is going to be able to tell you. So one of the things that I always encourage, sorry, Andrew, I know you started to say something, is do the Gemba walks. Sit down with somebody and see how they do it. Do the 5 whys. Ask, keep digging down until you really get to the root of it. Because if you just take the word at face value, you may be going down the wrong track.
I haven't heard those phrases since college. Good to hear them again.
But they work,
Like
PK. They really, really do. I mean, they really do.
Yeah.
What I was going to say was Jeremy Potter, if you guys know him, Jeremy has this great way of going about it, which is he asks people, what's the biggest waste of time in your work day?
Yep.
And I like, it's a perfect way for people to go, oh, well, I hate doing this thing.
Yeah.
It's like over and over again. You know?
And then, I mean, when you talk to the people, they'll tell you, oh, we have to do this workaround because it doesn't work in the system. And so this is what we do to get it to work. Well, hello, that's an opportunity to change something and make, again, people don't like change, but if you make it about them and how it's going to improve their life, it's the WIFM effect, what's in it for me, then they're on board. And then they understand that you're not trying to get rid of them, which is the biggest fear that people have with AI right now. I mean, that's like the biggest elephant in the room is everybody thinks you're bringing AI because you want to get rid of me. And what I tell people, no, we're bringing AI to make your life better so you could focus on the more important things rather than hitting the enter key 3 times so you could enter the rate or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I always say like AI like has the potential to make you fall in love with work again, right? Because all AI does, right? Like if you look at the arc of humanity, right? Like that's really what productivity is, right? Productivity is removing shit people don't actually want to do.
Yep. Yeah. Boring work or no joy work. I mean, I think that's I've heard that referred to somewhere. It's no joy. You sit there and you're doing it because you have to.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't get your job done, but you get no joy out of it. Well, let's put the joy back in.
Right. We were farmers and then we didn't want to be farmers and we became factory workers. And then we didn't want to be factory workers. Then we became service workers. And now we're like, there's a lot of the service work we really don't want to do. Right. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we just keep creating new jobs from that. What I
like it. Let's stop that train of thought. Never mind.
I had a couple of jokes in the tank on that one.
I always say that like there's 2 camps. There's Star Trek and there's Star Wars, right?
Okay, so now I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Which one are you?
Oh, come on. It's Star Wars. I mean,
I'm Star Trek. No. Wait, you should understand. Wait, you should understand the premise of it. So the Star Trek camp believes that AI will bring us this amazing reality where everybody else is able to do the work they love. There's no exchange of money. It's, a plentiful world where there's enough resources for everyone. And then Star Wars is the Death Star, right?
Okay, I retract.
So I call the Star Trek. I don't,
Star Trek all the way.
Star Trek. Yeah.
I'm gonna say somewhere in the middle.
He's got a dark, side of him. He's kind of like he's got that. It just sits in the back there.
He's scared of AI.
I'm just gonna. I just think that human problems will be human problems, and then like AI is gonna solve like kind of like the other problems, like work related stuff. But like the core human aspects, things they're gonna still be the same. Like we're gonna always want nice things and better things, and all those kind of like those things are gonna be the same. So our expectations are just gonna get higher.
Did it blow your mind that, what was it, 30% of people say please and thank you when they're talking to AI because they're afraid that it's when the uprising happens, they're going to come and get them and to say please and thank you. It's actually, they'll remember that.
So what's funny is I had heard early on that like there's certain things in prompting that actually help the outputs. For instance, if you give the LLM like the belief that it's going to that it has like what's the word I'm looking for? But like that it gets something in return, right?
A reward.
There's a reward. Thank you, God. But I had also heard that like you really should talk to it like you would speak to an intern. So I had always been like, I've always said at least thank you. Now I dropped it, Sam, so I could save you some money. So now I've gotten way shorter and more curt with it.
Yeah.
Treating it like a real intern.
Well, that was always
go get me coffee. No, I didn't say that.
From a prompt engineering, if you think about it from a prompt engineering perspective, a lot of it comes down to how I would give instruction to an intern who was really smart, but doesn't have sorry, I'm going to show this quote so you can look at it. We'll answer it in a second. Anyway, I don't know where I was going.
Squirreled.
I squirreled. Steven,
what's happening in real time?
You, Steven. Have you seen any AI use cases and verification that genuinely improved both security and onboarding speed?
I guess, so there's three things that Stephen is asking about, and I just want to make sure that I'm hitting the right thing. So there's verification. Are we talking about ID verification? Are we talking about income verification, employment verification? What type of verification are we talking about? And then he went into security and onboarding, and that now leads me to more of an infrastructure, bringing somebody on board from an HR perspective, that kind of thing. So I want to make sure which side we're talking about, because there are use cases in both areas, actually. There are use cases on the kind of underwriting side where you're doing verification if you're doing non-ID verification, but verification of employment, assets, income, that kind of thing. And there's also use cases on the security and onboarding side as well. So
let's talk about onboarding.
Onboarding from an HR perspective.
Yeah, we'll see if Steven comes back in and clarifies. But in the meantime, let's talk about onboarding.
So a couple of things that I've seen is one how when you're actually bringing somebody and assigning them the entire onboarding process and how it communicates with them, it's not necessarily AI, it's more of an automation process there, I think, where it's actually, providing the documents that need to be signed. It actually communicates, it has a bot kind of perspective to it, where the new employee can actually talk about that. He's talking about income. Okay, there we go.
We're going to pivot right back there.
So change that whole conversation now. Yes, there's actually a couple of good income verification tools out there. Friday Harbor does a little bit on the QC and income. I believe Candor does a little bit, although they're not as much into the AI space yet, but they are building that. So there's a lot of opportunity there as well. Gateless does a lot in that space as well. Those are the three that come straight to head. They haven't paid me to say their name. I'm putting that out there. This is just, from reading, from hearing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Friday Harbor just did a big raise, didn't they?
Yeah.
10, 20 million, something like that on a Series
they did.
X.
Yeah.
I believe we're gonna have them on the show, right?
Yeah, Theo's coming on, I think, in June.
June.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're excited.
Try to bring somebody on from Gateless as well, because they have a different aspect to it, and see if you can
Okay.
get somebody from Candor as well. I mean, again, those are the three that come to mind when we talk about verification.
Yeah, that does make sense. Candor was one of the ones that sort of popped up in my head as well. Let's talk a little bit about build versus buy, and I'm gonna give you I'm gonna get on a soapbox here for half a second that I know PK has probably heard me rant on. The one thing I'm most concerned, or I feel like is the most difficult part for all of us in the AI space, is this like huge growth of what I call snake oil salesmen who claim to be AI experts. Of course, you go to their LinkedIn profile and like they took like a GPT course, 3 months ago, and they've never worked in technology in their entire life. No, I'm not describing me. Sorry. But I think it's important to have this discussion because I hear often, or I've heard often from people, oh, this custom GPT, you can just build a custom GPT and it's going to solve your problem. And I actually heard about someone recently who paid a pretty substantial amount of money for what basically was a GPT wrapper that, of course, didn't actually work at the end of the day because there was no enterprise aspect to it whatsoever. So
yeah, and I think when you start to look at build versus buy, you also have to look at the enterprise versus personal. I think that conversation comes together, especially when you start to look at it from an organization perspective. Yes, as an individual, I can go out and build custom GPTs until the cows come home, but it's not something that I would bring into an enterprise. So when we're talking about enterprise, whether you decide to build your internal enterprise GPT or you partner with somebody to do it for you, it really comes down to a number of things. One, do you have the ability to maintain it and develop it internally? Do you have the skill set? Does your staff, do they understand? Can you wrap it with the security aspect and the data privacy aspect that you're going to have in place? Most small lenders do not. They do not. One, they do not have the resources with the right skill set yet. Or two, they don't have the knowledge of how to wrap the security and the data privacy around it. Because when you're building AI, security and data privacy are like the highest priority. That's like the biggest thing that you have to do to ensure that you are safeguarding your customers' data and your organization's data. So when we start to look at build versus buy and making that decision, you really have to look at two things. Do I have the resources and do I have the skill set? Or is it better for me to partner with somebody on one or two use cases as I bring up the skill set of my resources and then attempt to build something in-house? So you're learning, you're partnering with someone, you're giving them an opportunity to grow with you, but you're also teaching and upskilling your own resources so they can take on more, which at the end of the day is what we want AI to do, is to allow people to do more and do more joyful work. And if you're a developer, this is an exciting time for you, but you have to be ready and you have to understand how to do that.
I'm glad you said maintain.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Well, I know, but there seems to be this like belief out there with artificial intelligence, like it's magic pixie dust. And like you just turn it on and it's done, and there's no maintenance and
forget it and set it and forget it at all. With AI, you have to. There's a lot of maintenance associated with that.
So I want to say the unpopular thing that a lot of vendors may not want to have out there is it's not that hard for people that are doing it day to day, but it does require an expertise. And if you're not doing it every day, you're going to lose it. You're just not going to have it. And it's not that difficult for someone like Ask Bob. There's your plug over there, Andrew. Very little maintenance.
Or Mace Innovations.
Or Mace Innovations. But like, people that are telling you, yeah, we're maintaining your AI and it's taking us 40 hours a week. That's just bullshit. It's easy for people that are in the space and it doesn't take much time. And so just let people that are experts help you there.
And this goes back to partner with somebody as you build your skill set and then the third or the fourth use case, try to do it on your own and see if it works. But you have to give your team, you have to give your resources a chance to learn. And the way they're going to learn is they're going to learn when you partner with somebody, because they're going to be on the front line. They're going to be seeing what they're doing. They're going to be learning from them. I mean, the vendors are probably not liking me saying that because they don't want to teach. That's not what they're there for. But that's really an opportunity for you to upskill your resources, is putting them on the front line learning. And I saw Mike's comment.
Let me do. I want to read the whole thing because it got cut off on the thing. But you probably got the sense here, which is, how do you prevent ending up with 20 different little AI things because most selling it are selling one single part of the process? If it's okay, I'm going to jump in here. And I'm not plugging us. There's plenty of people who do what we do. It really comes down to, I think, finding the right provider that does agentic AI or AI agents for the vast majority of what you're doing is the best route to go, so that you have that partner who can both go wide and deep with you. I am going to give you some caveats to that, right? Obviously, if there's a new AI underwriting engine that is out there, that's probably a software tool unto itself, right? We're not quite at the point of that being just an AI agent, and that's all that it is. There's a lot of complex stuff that goes into building that out, right? A point of sale. I'm sure there's going to be an AI native point of sale coming out here, at least in the somewhat near future. Anybody else who has AI in their point of sale, they may have added it. It's not AI native. Sorry, folks. That's from that perspective. So yeah, that's sort of my answer to it is, and I think it's the best way to go about the journey, is finding someone who can come in and go, okay, let's help you with this process. That works well. You've adopted it. Also, in any standard sort of AI agent software, it's not really software. It's injected into or integrated into your existing technology solutions. So you really shouldn't have to be teaching or learning new tech. The last thing, and then I'll get off my soapbox and everybody else to talk, is in that space, anyone in the AI space, if they're not giving you a free POC, like, I would kick them out the front door. Whatever you do, don't sign a contract that basically locks you into 3 years with an AI tool that you didn't even get to use. And be, what is it Brian said last week? Question everything. Question demos. Like, I'm seeing more and more of these, like, YouTube or these video demos. I don't know if you guys are seeing these, but like people on live calls who will show you a video demo, and I'm like, dude, I can rig that. Like,
no, I mean, and you hit it on the nose with a couple of things, Andrew. One, absolutely find a partner that can solve several of your use cases. So when you're having that conversation with the different partners and providers that are out there, have that list of use cases that you want to do and walk them through them and see how many of them. Just a scorecard. 5 AI vendors, you've got 10 use cases. Who are you going to partner with? Probably the one that can at least satisfy the majority of your use cases, which is what you were saying. 2, you want to make sure that trust but verify, which is what you were saying. Don't believe everything they tell you. Ask, make it hands-on. A POC, making sure that you have a sandbox where you can go in and play, is very critical. And on the vendor management contract side, I've started to advise some of my clients to put this in as a clause in the master agreement that, within a certain number of months, a certain time frame, if the vendor, the partner, has not been able to resolve what they're trying to achieve, they can walk out of that contract once it goes live. So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself, because, as Mike said, there are hundreds of providers out there that are saying they can do this. And so you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, and you want to make sure that you're asking the right question. As Brian said, ask the questions and keep asking even more. Make sure that you can get your hands on it, because if you can't, then you're not going to be able to test it. You're not going to be able to tell, does it really do what it's supposed to do? I kind of, I look back to 2020, right at COVID, when production was out the door and everybody was like buying technology off the shelf because they had money. So, oh, they're doing this, I want to buy it. They're doing that, I want to buy it. And, I call them the shiny new objects, the snow effect. And so you want to avoid that with AI, because AI is going to cost you a lot more down the line than those technology products did. And you want to make sure that you are being very, very strategic about who you partner with and what use cases you're trying to implement.
Yeah. The other thing I would add is I don't want to say avoid this, but I would be somewhat leery of technology companies who have no one on their team who has a fairly decent background in the mortgage industry. I think it is too hard to be able to articulate at the detail level that you need to for someone who doesn't actually understand like your business, at least in some level of like generality. All right.
I want to come back to a point Suha mentioned on the last talking point, which is about upskilling. So great point. I love that. But what are where is let's say you're an executive at some IMB and you're like, okay, I want to do a strategy where I'm going to work with a vendor, give them a couple use cases while I'm going to upskill my team, whether it's my dev team, my sales people, my ops people, etc. Where should they go, and what are the skill sets they need to be upskilling on? Okay, let's say AI generally, but where do they go? Do they need to go take a Coursera course, or where do you point them, and what are the things they should be looking to upskill on?
So a couple of things. Every person learns differently. So you have to bring the training and the education to where they are going to be able to learn the most. Some people are very hands-on. So taking a course is not going to work for them. They're going to want to actually be able to dive in, set up their own environment, and play with it. That's how they learn. And they do their own research and find out that way. There's some people who learn by actually sitting in a classroom, whether it's virtual or not, and learn. They like to be instructed because that's how they learn. That's how it gets into their head. So when you're making your strategy to reskill and upskill your team, you have to sit down with each of them if you don't know. And you have to figure out how do they learn? What's their learning style? And then figure out what's the right thing for them to do. There is a plethora of free courses out there. You don't have to pay to learn all this stuff, honestly. And it's only when you're getting into maybe much, much higher, deeper level of stuff where you need to understand the concepts and whatever that you may want to consider paying for a course. But there's a ton of stuff out there that you can leverage as an initial step to begin that upskilling, reskilling journey. And again, if you're partnering with someone, your DevOps, your developers, your backend, they're working with them. So it's going to be a collaboration. It's not like the partner is going to sit there and do all the work on their own, and then you're just going to come in and say, okay, here you go. Because if you're not sitting with them, understanding how it's configured, how it's working, what it does, why it does it the way it does it, then you're not going to be able to maintain it later. So you've got to have that knowledge. So that's one learning experience. And again, finding out how people learn, because everybody's different. I'm still old-fashioned. If I don't write something down, it does not stick in my head. I still have a pen and paper. I use it every single day. As much in technology as I am, unless I write it down, that's how I learn. That's me. That's not
I'm the
everybody.
same, the exact same.
Not everybody is like that, but you have to meet your courses where they want to learn and how they want to learn.
All right. So I want to jump in here. for our question from last week, which I will play for you, Suha, because you may not recall what Brian said. So give me
Oh, what did Brian say?
You're going to find out.
So I know Suha and I know what she does. And so Suha, what I would want to know next week is how do you prep a prospect when you're going on site? You know, what's the most efficient way to prep them so that when you go on site, you're going to get, you and they are going to get the most value, most bang for the buck on that initial consultation. I think it's something that, as a business development person and salesperson, I'm not very good at that. And so I think if I can learn how to improve that prep process, it's going to make it that initial consult more valuable.
So I would start by saying is not every client is the same. So your process has to kind of adjust based on who your client is and what their style is. So one size does not fit all. That being said, there is a framework that I personally use. And I learned this along the way. I've been doing consulting for about 4 or 5 years, really in depth, but I've always been a consultant even prior to mortgage. That was kind of one of the things that I did. And so the framework is really very, very simple. It's kind of like a 5-step process. You got to do your prep, which is on your own, finding out a little bit about the client. They reached out to you. They said, hey, I want to talk to you about X. So your first thing that you want to do is prepare and learn about that client, who they are, what they do, that kind of thing. Then you're going to schedule some time to do discovery. You're going to meet with some of the executives. And I have a list of, I have a checklist and a list of things that I walk through with them to make sure that I'm collecting all the information that I need to understand what their pain points are, to understand what problem they're trying to solve. Because at the end of the day, they're bringing you in. They want to engage with you because they have a problem that they want to solve. And you're the experts going to help them solve it, right? That's why they're bringing you in. So from discovery, then you basically have to then sit down and kind of reflect on everything that you heard. You synthesize all the information that you got and kind of start to develop a proposal. From the proposal, you sit down and you talk to them about it. Make sure you're on the right track. Obviously, you don't want to submit a proposal and then find out, oh, no, this is not what we wanted. We actually wanted something else. And so as you're building the proposal, you want to keep that conversation going. And again, it's a framework. I mean, I kind of like this, and it's step by step, and you go through it. There's a checklist. And as you develop it until you arrive to the final point where you actually are ready to submit a proposal and you have a follow-up meeting with them. I mean, it sounds very straightforward. It is. I like to keep things simple because I don't want to overcomplicate things. Clients like to be, and they don't want somebody that's going to come in and spend 5 weeks just to get some information from them. They're bringing you in because they have a need, they have a problem, and they want you to be responsive and help them execute on that. And so you have to be fast, be able to pivot, be able to provide them everything else that they're asking for. I don't know if I've answered Brian.
We'll find out. We'll ask Brian.
Find out.
Is Brian watching? Brian, are you out there?
So I was gonna ask, do you find that a lot of lenders have their processes documented, or is that sometimes where you're actually helping them set that up and actually document, getting from 0 to 1 so that you can come in and actually be strategic advising and all that kind of
thing? It's a combination. I think there are some that have pretty good processes documented. The problem is our industry evolves so quickly, even though we drag our feet. I know it's a conundrum and I know it's kind of like a paradox, but we move fast while we're dragging our feet. And so a lot of IMBs and small banks don't have the ability to document all these changes that they are doing, all these things that happen to them that they have to adjust. So they go in and, change management, version control, we're talking technology here. Those kind of things don't exist as much if you don't have the right infrastructure in place. And then the same if you go on the sales side or the processing side or the underwriting side, they're adjusting and pivoting to changing regulations, changing requirements, this, that, or the other. And going back to update the documentation is kind of like the last thing they're thinking about.
Yeah.
Right. And so part of the conversation is making sure that we are helping them redocument and bringing things up to speed and helping them put in place a procedure, a process that allows them to do it in future in a much more efficient way. So it's not so cumbersome down the road. And hopefully AI can help with that.
There are some great AI tools that help with all of that. Like we've used Scribe. I think there's another one that comes to mind, but Scribe is the one that comes to mind. Andrew, did you have another one that you use?
No. I was going to say we've had this discussion. If somebody could come up with an AI tool that can write user manuals based off of code written on the backside, like you will be a unicorn overnight. All right, we're gonna jump in. We don't have a little bit of time here left, so we're gonna jump into rapid fire questions. Suha, short answers to these. What was the first piece of tech you used in the mortgage world?
When I was at university, I actually interned at IBM, and I actually tested the IBM 3270 PCAT. I'm aging myself. So for all of you guys who know what an IBM 3270 PCAT, I tested it.
All right. Tech trend you're bullish on?
Oh, man, that's a big one. I like organization. So I like any technology that helps me stay organized, helps me stay on track. I use a lot of different tools, but I always fall back to my notebook.
All right. Ooh, one tech trend that's pure BS.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know if it's pure BS, but God, blockchain came about and we all thought it was going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. It still has the ability to. I don't know if AI is going to do anything to it, but
we're going to have Ian on eventually from Liquify, and they do blockchain for securitizations. Yeah. But you are right. Like we all heard, like blockchain was going to be the next thing.
Metaverse would be my other one.
And then COVID happened, or AI. I don't remember which killed it. If you could only have one AI tool, you had to pick one, had to get rid of all the others, what would it be?
For right now, I would keep Claude.
Interesting. Okay. I feel like there's like an Apple and Android camp, and it's now like OpenAI versus Anthropic.
Yep.
Like, you're a Claude person?
I'm a Claude person. And I'm an Android person, so.
OpenAI and iPhone, Apple. There you go. If you ladies and gentlemen, you can tell who's the actual real tech person on this call, and it's not me. If you
not true at all.
If you had $5 million to invest today, what problem would you solve?
What problem would I solve? Are we talking in mortgage? Are we talking world hunger? I mean, wow.
It's only $5 million, so I don't know that world hunger could be on the list. But
yeah, no, it cannot. $5 million. What would I honestly cannot think of something that I would say I would drop $5 million to right this very second. Cancer research.
Okay, there we go. All right, and then we have a wild card question that, of course, is brought to you by ChatGPT. I did not. This literally is what I came up with. Suha, imagine the cloud accidentally turns self-aware tonight and decides to pitch its own startup called Sasquatch, an app that helps mythical creatures refinance their enchanted cottages. As the newly appointed CTO of Sasquatch, what totally unnecessary but undeniably cool feature do you green light first, and why?
I would love to teleport anywhere. So I would say teleporting. I would do teleporting if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could teleport to the enchanted cottage to do the valuation report on the enchanted cottage.
I would love to teleport. Can you tell I'm a Star Trek person?
Exactly. I'm still waiting. All right. Last but not least, for the whole group, just pick one of these to answer, but you get multiple questions. A new product you're testing, a new way you're using ChatGPT. Actually, you know what? Let's scratch all of that. What is one way that you guys are using ChatGPT or Claude?
I use both.
That's new or novel.
Personally, I'm looking at operators. I've actually started to look at operators and trying to see how I can get more organized and streamline some of the things that I do on a daily basis.
Okay. Mine was a little hack. I actually put it out on LinkedIn this weekend. Was I knew I needed to update our website. I knew like the text primarily, like I just and I hate doing it. Like I hate writing. Like it's my least favorite thing in the world. And so what I did was I actually took our investor deck, and then we've got this other document that basically is like mission, vision, every agent we ever want to build. Like it's sort of our holy grail or Bible or whatever you would call it. And I loaded that and those two documents, told GPT my website address, and I asked it to review the documents, and then taking that and everything it knew, please rewrite all the copy on my website. And it was amazing. If nothing else, it pointed me out to each of the areas that needed to be updated. Now, I didn't necessarily use the exact suggestion they gave, but it at least got me thinking.
It got you started, and it probably pointed out inconsistencies of where you said something in one place and a different thing in another place.
Yeah. PK, what you got?
Yeah, so I actually did something similar over, and it took me more than a weekend, but I vibe coded our new website, and I started with Claude, moved to GPT, and then into Windsurf. And I also use this thing called 21st.dev, but in our entire website, I would say 90%, 85 to 95%, 90% of it was done with AI, and the rest of it, getting it across the finish line, was just our dev. And so, yeah, that's like, I guess, like a couple different tools there, but that's one use case we use it for.
All right. Mace?
It would have cost me a lot of money to do it otherwise.
We're actually playing around with doing what you just kind of mentioned earlier, Andrew, which is like having some guides and manuals being written purely from the code and the vibe coding.
Ooh.
Let me know how that works out.
That's cool. I want to know how that goes.
Also, if you're not anybody who's doing any software dev, look into Rue code, and you need to be using it.
There you go. You heard it.
You heard it here. Okay, so let's rapid fire answer this question, because Mike, who's longtime listener, just kidding, 2 weeks. I thought this was a really good question. Jill Johnson also thought it was a really great question. So, if software companies like Encompass kind of at risk versus software that is rule-based as rapid fire changes and improvements, opportunities come from AI. I'll go real quick. It's going to take long because of the way how difficult it is to get out of an LOS platform. I think most people know it's not something anybody really wants to do, exactly. Not to mention contracts are a little difficult to get out of and whatnot. I would say short term, probably not as at risk. I would say long term, 100% at risk. It's really difficult for a company like Encompass to become AI native, right? It's like I heard an investor say a couple of weeks ago that they never would have backed a competitor to Salesforce, but now they would, because they don't believe that Salesforce can actually move with the kind of speed and innovation that a startup coming out of Stanford or wherever would be able to do in that space. So that's my 2 cents.
I mean, I totally agree. I think in the short term, they are not, because AI is not mature enough yet where it's going to create that issue. But I think as AI matures, organizations need to be nimble to be able to succeed and thrive in this next brave new world of ours. And unfortunately, Encompass, ICE mortgage technology, or, when you look at the larger ones who are so bureaucratic, there's almost a lot of silos. They're not platformed. It's going to be very difficult for them to change into that nimble organization mentality and mindset and be able to pivot and do things with agility, as you said.
Yeah. All right. We run out of time, but we have to do one last thing here, Suha, which is our guest next week is the great Mike Yu from Vesta. Ooh. Which this will be a really exciting one. I think PK is not showing up next week. Are you, PK?
Next week I'm here. I'm missing
you're
on
here. It's the week after that.
The 12th, right. And
I'm gonna have to find a replacement for you. I'm just kidding. So, Suha, this is your chance. What question would you like Mike Yu from Vesta to answer?
See, now I wish I knew who Mike Yu is, so I could figure out what kind of question to ask.
Mace, do you want to give the
Suha, I'll give you a little background. It's a startup LOS that's up and coming with a large 40+ million invested. And they've been around for just a couple years.
Okay. So my question to him would be, how are you AI native, and what are you going to be doing to be a nimble organization in this brave new world?
All right, there you go, Mike. If you're listening, you've got a week.
And Mike, you got high praise for Mike Cush.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because Mike Cush, I have a lot of respect for Mike.
I respect Mike Cush. If he says he's the smartest guy, he is the smartest guy.
He must be the smartest guy, because Mike does not mince words. I think we all know that.
Oh, yeah.
So once again, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Everybody watching, either live or when this restreams, appreciate you, PK and Mace, always.
Thank you.
All right, as he calls us out, you need to do your dancing now.
All right, folks, we'll end the stream on that.
Camera.
Bye, everybody.